and then I'll get that to you. The live stream's kind of new to me. I hadn't done it before. The three of us, oh, Connor's
Mm.
not with us tonight, but before we started working together. The live stream's kind of new to me. I hadn't done it before. The three of us, oh, Connor's
Mm.
not with us tonight, but before we started working together.
Nice.
The live stream's kind of new to me. I hadn't done it before. The three of us, oh, Connor's
Mm.
not with us tonight, but before we started working together.
Nice.
The live stream's kind of new to me. I hadn't done it before. The three of us, oh, Connor's
Mm.
not with us tonight, but before we started working together.
Nice.
The live stream's kind of new to me. I hadn't done it before. The three of us, oh, Connor's
Mm.
not. All right. I think we are set.
Is
I
it
sent
looping?
you an email with the
Okay.
Zoom, the live stream.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anthony, audio good on everybody?
Yeah, I can hear very clearly.
Okay, great. All right, let's get this ball started. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of From Hollywood to the Heartland. My name is Beau Tiffany, your host, along with Anthony Powell and our special guest today, Ayman Samman. Welcome, Ayman.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Bo. I appreciate it.
It's an exciting night for me. I'm looking forward to this talk. In addition, Anthony just was at the Reagan premiere last week, so he wasn't with us. Anthony, how was that experience?
It was great. I had found out, I think I shared with you just a few days before I headed down there that my part had made the final cut of the film. I'm sure as Ayman will identify with, sometimes you don't know if your part's going to get cut out.
That's true.
But when we went to actually go see the movie, the director, Sean McNamara, pretty well-known director, came up to me and said, "Hey, you did a great job." So yeah, about a 12-second, little news anchoring bit. As I told you, Ayman, before we started recording live, I was a news anchor for many years, so wasn't that much of a stretch. Although they did want a more kind of dramatic type of news anchor. So there was a little bit of acting involved because back in the 80s, the style was a little bit more drama, old school than you see now with anchors. So I tried to bring that through. But yeah, it was a fun experience. Dennis Quaid made the trip to Oklahoma because the vast majority of the film was filmed in Oklahoma. So yeah, Sean McNamara, the director, the producers came back. A few of the co-stars came back. So yeah, Beau knows the story. I actually auditioned for the film in March of 2020 and then didn't find out that I had booked it until August of 2020. Started shooting in October of 2020, but COVID was raging then. So the set was shut down many times. And then, of course, you had the Screen Actors Guild strike. And then I think they just decided to hold the movie until a presidential election year. So anyway, it was a good time. It was, yeah, it was fun to see the premiere and be there with some of the people behind the scenes.
Well, and I talked with you privately, but I thought the bit that you did have was really a pinnacle bit within the movie. And for anybody that hasn't seen the movie, I highly recommend it. I was astonished on how great the quality of that movie was.
Yeah.
It held my attention all the way through. It was so well done. And I think your part two was, like I said, kind of a pinnacle bit. It's right in the middle of the movie, and
Yeah.
you nailed it. It was great.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So now
Not
you
not quite as
yeah,
big as not quite as big as American Sniper, but
that's all right. You could say like have your people talk to my people and stuff like that.
That's right. That's
Or
right.
if you want me, I'll be in my trailer.
How did you get cast in American Sniper? What was that story?
That was a very interesting story, actually. So let me see if I can remember because it's been a while. So that also like the gap between the audition and actually when I knew that I actually got the part was very long because so I got the call from my agent that I have an audition for Clint Eastwood, and of course I was super nervous. I have I've only done like a couple of TV shows at that point and like smaller roles, and so I was very intimidated. But I prepared a lot, and they basically, because like when the movie's at that level, they kind of they don't really necessarily share the actual script or share the actual character. Sometimes they just like give a type that they want, and then from there they cast. Yeah, so I was given a scene, and and it was a very dramatic scene, and then I went to the studio. I thought that Clint Eastwood was going to be there, but he wasn't. He actually just like sees the recorded tape.
Oh,
But it was
gotcha.
yeah, it was very intimidating. Like it was at Warner Brothers, and there was like 20 guys that looked like me. Um, so, um, so it was, I was very nervous. And I went in, and then the casting director was very welcoming and very warm, which helped. Uh, so I did my thing. I didn't know how it went. I just did one take, and they didn't ask me to redo or anything. And I left, and that was like January. And I totally forgot about it. And then, like, I think it was April when my manager called me and said, "Are you sitting down?" I was like, "What's up?" She's like, "Clint Eastwood wants you in his movie," and I was like, "Holy shit!" So that was like, I was like doing like mental backflips at that point. It was really,
Yeah, that's
really exciting.
incredible.
It was also like very unexpected because kind of like the gap was very long that I forgot about it, and but the role they gave me wasn't like the one that I auditioned for. It was like a different character. And then yeah, and then I went to the set. Um, and this big dude with like a big beard and a baseball cap, and he's like wearing military gear, and he comes over and he's like talks with a Texan accent, and he's like, "Hey," I was like standing by the trailer, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And like with a Texan accent, and I'm like, "I'm good." He's like, "What's your name?" I was like, "Ayman." He's like, "What are you playing?" And I told him the character. He's like, "Nice to meet you. I'm Bradley." And then he left, and I was like, "Holy fucking shit, that was Bradley Cooper." Like I didn't recognize him because he had like gained like 40 pounds for the character, and
Oh,
it
Yeah, he
looked
looked a lot different, didn't he?
it looked very different, and he kept the accent throughout, like offset, like offset. He kept talking with it. So that was like my first encounter, and then I went to the set, and then I met Clint Eastwood, who came like and shook my hand, and he's like, "Well," he like I was freaking out and on the inside, but trying to keep like a professional like
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
face. And then he shook my hands very like he was very calm, and he's like, "Welcome, we're happy to have you," and completely disarmed all the tension that I had, and it was really lovely.
It's
uh yeah, it was a
Once you
really fun.
started filming your scene with Bradley Cooper, did the nerves go away since they were so warm to you initially?
uh yes and no, because like they tricked me on the first scene too. Like so the first scene, like we're supposed to be I'm having dinner with my family, and then the Marines come in and break into my apartment to use it as a viewing point. But like in the script, like I'm eating, and then they come in and they cut to the in between is like they cut to me being on the floor. So that, I was like, oh, so we're gonna shoot like until they come in, and then we're gonna cut, and then we're gonna do like, the reset for me being on the floor. So they didn't tell me that they're gonna actually come in and actually, take me down and like, handcuff me and stuff. So I wasn't really expecting it at all. So my reactions were actually like real at that point.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
that's the best kind, right?
yeah. I was like, what the hell is going on? Um,
Brennan, if you don't mind, before we get too much further into this,
yeah,
let
yeah,
me
yeah.
introduce you just a little bit. So, ladies and gentlemen that are listening and tuning in, this is Ayman Samman. Ayman has been just an amazing actor in such great projects like American Sniper, as we were just talking about. He's also created and produced Momo's America, which is an amazing cartoon that you can find some shorts on for YouTube. Are there full episodes now?
No, but they'll find the short episodes. We ended up selling them to Comedy Central, so Comedy Central acquired them, so they're on their animated YouTube channel.
I love
Uh,
it. I laughed my ass off. It was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely great.
Thank you, man. And
And
it
I,
was, that was how we kind of dealt with lockdown. It was so depressing, and we wanted to create something that cheer people up a little bit.
yeah,
Um,
definitely put a smile on my face. I'm curious about the production of that. I mean, when it comes to animation, was that like a frame by frame? Was it a program that you guys used? I mean, it's so well done and it's reminiscent of Family Guy in terms of its feel.
yeah.
How'd you get to get that done?
Yeah, thank you for that's a very good question. So my co-producer and I were my co-producer, he's actually an animator, and he came up with the concept, and then we developed it together, and then we started writing, the scripts. So he's an animator, although he didn't really animate everything. He just set up like the initial animatics, they call it, and then we used actually animators in Egypt that he knew, because we're both Egyptian, and he worked in Egypt and on big projects. So we used animators in Egypt because and it really helped. Well, of course, like cost wise, it was actually a lot cheaper than to animate it here. And we
Mhm.
weren't working, we were in lockdown. We were actually using our unemployment money to pay for it. So we used Egyptian, and also it helped that they understand the culture. So like they did a lot of the nuance of movements and certain things that otherwise, somebody else would miss it.
Sure.
Uh, yeah, so they're fantastic. They're like really they work on big projects there. They were kind of doing us a favor and helping us out.
Yeah,
So you've got,
Anthony. Oh,
oh,
go ahead, Anthony.
no, well, you've got so much going on between the acting and Momo's Family, the psychological thriller that you're producing and direct by summer of 2025, right?
Yes.
How do you balance it all? Does it get overwhelming? Because I mean, as I know, just being an actor is a lot. And how are you balancing all of these projects?
Well, that's a very good question. I think it's just discipline. Um,
Yeah,
and I mean, I'm not like I'm not perfect. I'm like a lot of times sometimes I feel down and I don't do anything. But for the most part, just to be this, because it really I love, I realized, I didn't realize it before, but I realized I really love writing, and it
yeah,
really takes my mind over. It's almost therapeutic to me.
yeah.
Uh, and as an actor and director, like when I'm writing, I'm actually acting out the characters and the scenes in my mind. So I kind of delve into the world for a while, and I disconnect from reality for the duration that I'm writing.
And I applaud you for taking your destiny into your own hands and coming up with your own projects rather
Amen.
than just waiting
Absolutely.
rather than them just waiting to come to you. Because as we all know, being an actor can be, I mean, you can have some busy periods, but then you can have some long droughts. But I really, I think it's great that you've, taken the initiative to, put your face and name behind your own projects.
Thank
The
you.
diversifications is amazing. I talked to you about
Right.
that before we started recording. You just blow me away with the things that you've been involved with. And I love one of the things I used to talk about in my old podcast was like the fundamental pillars, the tools in the toolbox. And you exemplify that. You seem to be able to pull out a different tool to fit writing or voiceover or acting or what brought you over to the States? Heavy metal.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You truly are a gifted artist.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I mean, it's sometimes I feel like I have no choice because I can't. I mean, I tried the non-artist life. I had a corporate job and I was a consultant for a while, but I just I couldn't do it. It's yeah, it's I have no choice.
Do you find like me, the acting world, like you were saying earlier, you book this role on American Sniper and you think, okay, that's going to be the gateway to projects. But I find even when I book roles, I'm still asked to audition. It's not like they direct book you on another film based on your previous performances. I mean, it feels
Right.
like auditioning is, unless you're a Brad Pitt or a Bradley Cooper, who are just going to get the film, on their name. For most actors, even with someone as impressive as a resume as you have, it's still about auditioning for the most part, correct?
It is. It is. There's no way around it, and it's after a while you consider it like it's a big part of the job. Really, I mean, it
Right.
is kind of the job
Yeah.
because you audition so much for so many things, and then you book the one thing that you work on for maybe a couple of days, or a few days, or a week, or 2 weeks, whatever. But like the period before that is much longer, so and you're auditioning much more than you actually work.
Yeah.
So auditioning is the job, really.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to make peace with that it's the fact of the business.
Yeah. You're going to spend, the old saying is you're going to spend more time looking for work than you actually will work. Again, unless you're one of the, top 1%. So you're right. It is just part of the job.
And that's part of what motivated me to start writing and creating my own content,
Yeah.
partly because of that, because of the lull between gigs, and also when I first came here, it was like all the roles for people that looked like me were terrorists and stuff, and now it's definitely not, it's less, but even once you're in that frame of like Middle Eastern, the roles that are available are either unmemorable or like really depressing. You're like a refugee, or like it's just like we have this halo around us that's like you can't shake. And that's why I was like, you never see like a psychological thriller with Middle Eastern characters in it.
Mm.
I love that genre, and that's why I was like, let me just write an American story with people that look like me, that just happen to
Yeah.
be a different descent, but they're just living their life here.
Mostly white people in their 20s and 30s.
One of the things I loved about Momo's is you tackled a lot of those stereotypes. And for one of the things that stood out to me is one of your characters, like the wife, had like 50 million jobs. She could cook and talk on the phone and order and do her online social media marketing all at the same time. It was hilarious. But there's a cultural stereotype for that too. Um, is there any truth to that, do you find?
Yeah, well, we wanted, because it's a comedy, I'm involved in the Middle Eastern community. We wanted to acknowledge the existence of the stereotype. It does exist. Uh, but it's, it's not a bad thing, because like, like the immigrant mentality is like hard work, like I came
Absolutely.
here from a much harder way of life, and then now I have opportunity. Uh, and so because America, pays off for hard work, where like where we come from, hard work, it doesn't matter. So now you're finally like, oh, well, if I work hard, I can actually change my life, and that's the immigrant mentality. And what people don't realize is that unless you're a Native American, we're all immigrants in America, you know.
Absolutely.
So, but maybe some of us are more recent, but like the ingenuity of the immigrants is what keeps America like advancing all the time, because you always have you're funneling new perspectives and new ideas, and of people that are just coming here.
Anthony, have you
Absolutely.
traveled outside of the US much?
I'm sorry.
I was asking Anthony if he traveled outside of
Canada,
the US.
Mexico, where else have I been? Haiti, but not the Middle East, certainly.
I've done a lot of Europe. I've done a lot of like Greece, uh, Italy, down to the basically the bottom of the boot.
Yeah.
Um, but the one thing that I found is, when we travel other places, we had this idea of what it was going to be like, and it never turned out to be that way. In fact, always much more warming and welcoming in my experience than typically we're led to believe. And so I was just wondering if when you traveled outside, if you found that yourself, because I'll tell you, there's nothing like connecting with people globally than just traveling a little bit, getting outside of your own backyard. What do you think, Ivan?
I think it's I mean, when you watch the news in general, and if you're plugged into the news gives you a really uh, uh, gloomy perspective of most of the world. Like if you watch the news about LA and you don't live in LA, you're gonna be like seeing cars on fire and people shot and stuff. And I live here and I don't really see that stuff,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
really, I walk, at night, and it's not. But like if you're outside and you're plugged into the news, you think LA is a hellhole.
Yeah.
Uh, and that the same goes, with the Middle East and other countries. But once you actually dare to deny what the news is telling you, and to just actually go and meet the people, you realize we're not so much different. Everybody has the same problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, the media takes the exception and makes it the rule. So,
Yeah.
you see one smash and grab and you think it's happening 24/7. So, what we on this show we often talk about the challenges of getting into the acting business. When you went out to LA, what were your biggest challenges? Finding representation? What was it?
Yeah, it was finding, representation. I had like contacted a few people before I came here, because I've done like some stuff in Chicago, like
Yeah,
some student films and indie stuff, and so I had like a relatively okay reel to like show. And so when I came here, I managed to get a manager a few months into it. But the challenge was to just dig in and stay optimistic. So I was like, well, I'm here to act. So I started doing plays, and I started like trying to do student stuff, just to meet like some of the student stuff that I did early on when I came here. Like some of these directors are now like really doing amazing things, and sometimes they tap me for things without auditioning. So that's like that's what happens for the longevity of like the journey. When you stay here, you stick around for a while, you
yeah,
develop a network of people that know you and trust you, and they tap you directly for stuff. So it was just, and I was just hungry, man. I was really excited to be here. So I did everything that I could to just stay active. And
I have a
and
question for you.
yeah.
Coming from your background, your idea of hard work is a lot different than ours. Do you find us Americans to be a little soft?
Uh,
I
a
say
little
that I
bit.
say that in a lighthearted way.
Yeah, a little bit. So before I moved here, I was my day job was a tour guide in Egypt, and that was a lot of hard work. Like I barely had any time off, and I worked like 20-hour days, and the pay wasn't that great, and then I moved here, and the first job that I had in Chicago was like in a travel company where like you're sitting in the air conditioning and you're just working 9 to 5 and you have a lunch hour break and stuff like that. And I was like, this is amazing, and I'm getting paid like 10 times what I was getting paid in Egypt. And I was like so grateful. And then like I hear, my coworkers are complaining about, just minor little things. I was like, you guys have no idea. You guys are in heaven.
It's
So
that
yeah,
perspective, right?
yeah, it is. It is.
Do you, for people wanting to get into the business, we're all on our show. We're preaching that there's opportunities outside of Los Angeles and New York. Do you think if somebody is living, like, let's say, in the Midwest, do you think there's enough opportunities in the Midwest, or would you advise them to try to make the leap and go to Los Angeles?
Well, it really depends. There's opportunities everywhere because now most of the jobs are through self-tape. So
Right,
you don't need to be even if the job is in LA, you don't need to be in LA to audition for it. You could just record yourself and send it. So I think the one main thing is just to have like some sort of a proof of your talent, like you have a reel, you work in your area with like student films or indie filmmakers, so that you develop a reel that showcase, or you just there's companies that create a reel for you, so you just have like something that showcases you so that you can acquire like an agent or a manager that submits you for the big jobs. uh,
right,
yeah, I don't think you need to necessarily be in LA. I think, like I mentioned that before we started recording, I worked more outside of LA than I worked in New Orleans and New York and Atlanta. So I worked, the percentage was probably 50-50 of the jobs that I did between LA and other places. So,
right,
and now the world is like a much smaller place with social media, so you could start creating your own content. Instagram, YouTube, there's no excuse. You just create your opportunity is really and this is the time for it. You have your own broadcast avenues that you could just put yourself on camera and showcase your talent.
right, 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 right.
Let me launch this back into so you started or launching a video marketing agency. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So it's still in the early phases. But I wanted to do something that fulfills my creativity, and as well as like provide some sort of consistent income, so that I'm not like uh just so desperate to get acting work. So that's so yeah, it's more in like it really focuses on storytelling. So we tell the stories of our customers in a way that increases their engagements with the audience, and like not just focus on like the technical stuff, like like you're a lawyer and you just focus on like, oh, we win these cases or whatever, but more actually focusing on the story side of things, and the transformation that they help people to make through their business.
Right.
Uh, is people connect with stories more than anything.
Yeah. So making it more of a personal touch with the videos.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not just straight up, hey, this is our product, buy it, and it's $500 or whatever. It's more like this is actually the transformation that we do in the world. We change people's lives in that way, and
Right.
show examples of that. And people, you touch people through real stories, of course, but like we use storytelling as a form of marketing.
And do these videos go on a company website so people get a more of a feel of what the people of the company are about?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends on the client's needs. You know, it
Yeah,
could go on their website, could go on their social media.
yeah.
It could be just for a presentation they're doing to raise funds. You know, it really it depends on a case by case.
Because I've found in this day and age of technology, which can, make you feel kind of sterile, people are really craving that human touch, getting to know people. Over the weekend, I stayed at a hotel. I was at a conference, and there was a gentleman there named James who worked at the hotel. As soon as I stepped in that hotel, he greeted me with the warmest smile, a bottle of water, and he was so genuine. The next day I went running. He took the time to show me the best route, and then when I came back, he was there with a bottle of water. Now, the hotel was great, but I can tell you, I would stay at that hotel again specifically because of that gentleman, James.
That's an amazing story. You know, yeah, it's because we're all craving human connection
Yeah.
ultimately, especially in the age of AI and everything is like tech and everything is digital and it doesn't matter, we're still on a human level, we crave that human connection, and that's, you know, why we're drawn to TV and film, is because it's, you know, you want to see someone's story, someone's struggle that resembles yours, and you know, that inspires you to change your life or something, you know. So human connection is ultimately what we're here for, and that's kind of my approach to marketing, because I was a marketing consultant early on in before I moved to LA. I was working for a Fortune 500 company, and so I took that knowledge as well as like my experience of storytelling and media production here, and kind of combining them both.
And Bodie
So,
got it.
I was going to say it's amazing how you diversify and you find a niche given your situation. COVID, you got into creating some production and animation. Post COVID, you got into some more producing, a couple acting roles, but now you're looking at doing this new short film. You know, you have opened up doors for yourself. My question out of all of that is there a certain pattern or is there like a certain playbook that you go by? Like how do you approach getting new roles? You're always having to find a new role, unless obviously since you've been in, they talk to you. Is there any nuggets that you can give us that might give insight to people breaking into the industry on how they might pick up some?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a very good question. I think, you know, ultimately, um, staying true to yourself, you know, like I know that I cannot survive without being creative. Uh, and also like, so staying true to yourself and also not being attached to a certain outcome. You know, so like, you know, when I first came here, of course, you know, Hollywood sells you on the dream of like, oh, you're gonna be a movie star and have a house on the hill and all of that. And you know, and if you get attached to that and it doesn't happen, you're gonna be miserable and you know, and you're gonna get depressed. And there's a lot of that happens in LA. So I decided that so long as I'm able to create stuff that touches people on a human level, whatever that may be, and it feels authentic to me, then I'm happy, and there's no attachment to what that is. So and I'm open to the flow of life. So you know, COVID hit, everybody was depressed, and I was depressed initially, but then like the animation thing, we were working on it before COVID, and we had a production company, and we were developing with them and stuff, and then they completely vanished on us. And we're like, okay, so what are we gonna? We're just gonna sit here? Let's do it. Let's do it on our own. So you just gotta, life, you know, gives you opportunities if you're willing to actually see them. It's like the lemonade thing. You get a lemon, what are you going to make out of it?
I'm
So
the
just
expert at lemonade.
yeah, just so staying flexible and not being attached to a certain like, oh, life has to happen this way, otherwise I'm destroyed.
Yeah, no, being malleable to the situation and what life throws at you is, I think, a huge key of nugget. Anthony, what do you think?
Well, I was liking what Ryman was saying, and I can identify about, developing a marketing agency, which would seem to provide a steadier type of income than acting would. My wife and I own a franchised business, and that really helps take some of the worry out of what I do, because I know that if I don't book every, role, we're still going to be okay. Because if I had to do this solely with this being my only income, it would be very tough. I mean, I've heard a statistic at any one given time, 95% of the members of Screen Actors Guild are out of work. So, it's important, as you've done, to diversify.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely set the bar high when it comes to diversity.
Yeah.
When you go home, what's it like visiting?
Uh,
Do they treat you like a celebrity? Are you the Brad Pitt of Egypt?
Not really. I mean, like, uh, I'm a celebrity within my family sphere, but and I recently there's an Egyptian. I've never acted in Egypt, so
That
so
surprises me.
because I started acting when I was here, and then only recently that I shot my first Egyptian film, which is hopefully going to be released sometime this year. And that's what I'm hoping, like, will kind of introduce me. I've done like a couple of Arabic things, but I wasn't playing, I was playing a Saudi and with a dialect that's different. So this is actually the first time I'm actually speaking like I naturally speak in Egyptian dialect, and it's an action comedy, and I play the villain, and it's a really fun character. I really enjoyed playing it, and we shot like in different countries, and it was so much fun. So I can't wait for that to come out to introduce me. I mean, like, some of the media outlets there know my work here, but like on the public level, I'm not really that known. And then, I don't really seek to be known. I really want to more just to do stuff in my country and in my language, and just like play with people, that I know.
Yeah.
It would be fun.
Do you get to
I don't
dance in
know.
both worlds, like Bollywood and Hollywood?
Yeah, I mean, that's hopefully the plan. I started kind of, when, because of the strike here and stuff, I started doing more stuff there. So I shot a movie in Saudi Arabia earlier this year, and I shot a movie in Turkey a couple of years ago. It's an American movie, but we shot it in Turkey, and so I'm using my background to my advantage. Like, so things dry out here. I speak another language, and I can still act in it. So
Right, right. I was going to ask if being bilingual helps. And actually, how many languages do you speak?
So I speak, English, obviously fluently, and Arabic, and I speak like a few different dialects of Arabic, because like Arabic, if you think of it as like English, as like Australian versus Irish, so each country has its own like unique dialect.
Hmm.
So I speak a few of those dialects, and I speak French, but I took French high school through college, but I never really got to practice it as much as English. But when I go to France, I can like order food and stuff and ask my way around. And
It's helpful. That's great.
Um,
Hey, how many do you speak languages, that is?
who, me?
Yeah, I was just tossed by. I
Oh,
was soft pitching the ball back
basically,
to
basically
you.
English North American, English with a little Southern accent, and un peu de français.
Nice, nice.
I don't know if you're a political person at all, but I am wondering about the political climate in Los Angeles, given the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Are you aware of that? With
Of
a lot of
course.
Los Angeles being Jewish, and I don't know if you get involved in it. You don't even have to say, but I'm just wondering about that in Los Angeles.
Yeah, of course. Los Angeles is like, I mean, it's full of creative, passionate people, and everybody's gets heated about the issues. I have friends I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I have a lot of Arab friends, and I have moderates and I have extremes on both sides. And
Right,
I think I think the main issue that this whole, I mean, obviously what's happening is really devastating, and it really needs to stop. But I think the issue that really is being emphasized also is uh, just that there's a difference between the religion and or the religious beliefs and the political ideology. Like,
very
so
well said. Very well said.
don't mix them up. Don't say, because just because you're a Jew, you're I hate you, or just because you're Muslim, I hate you. It's not, because it's really ultimately it's not about the religion. It's a political,
Right.
and that's what's happening, is the mix up between religion and politics, which always happens. But yeah, I hope that people have the discernment to be able to recognize the difference.
Very well said. Very well said.
Absolutely.
And I know that's kind of off topic, but it's so timely. So just curious about that.
Thank you. It's a good question.
Yeah. What do you see in terms of changes in Hollywood since we went through the pandemic? You touched on it lightly earlier in this podcast, but there's a lot that's changed. How has that rewritten the playbook for you?
Well, the of course the pandemic, the production was almost non-existent. Even it really was minuscule. Then after that, things started to pick up, and then the writer's strike, and then the actor's strike, and we can't seem to catch a break
Yeah.
since COVID. And then AI, and then all of this debate that's happening. Uh, and that's really, again, this is a lemon. You could either be sour about it, or you could just see, okay, so things are kind of closed here. What can I do to change my situation?
Yeah.
And and a lot of people are pivoting, here. A lot of actors are doing other things, and it's great. I think it's a great, when life throws something at you, it forces you to be creative about it.
Yeah.
Some people started podcasts or vlogging, or or teaching, or coaching. So there's a lot of people pivoted, uh, and they feel, I know a lot of people that are no longer necessarily like actively acting, but they found a fulfilling alternative, that
Uh-huh.
they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Let me kind of phase this towards the last quarter of our podcast. One of the topics that we've talked to our guest about is this whole emergence of AI and the tools, the threat to the industry, or at least the perceived threat. How are you viewing the advances in AI? Has it been helpful? Is it a threat? Where do you see it going?
So again, this is a curved ball, or again a lemon. I think AI is, I don't think it's a threat. I mean, I've always been like a geek about like technology, and a nerd, and I
Yeah.
just try to jump in and learn things. And then so like when they're like, oh, it's going to replace writers, and it's going to replace this and that, and I tried a lot of these. I think because the word AI is so trendy, they just throw it at anything. But
Right.
it's really, it's software. It's really just new software, but they just have to say it's AI so that it sells.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is really super lame. You know, like you know, I've tried so many, especially in the writing arena. I don't think it's going to replace humans anytime soon. Maybe in the future, I don't know. But like at this point, I think it's a good tool. Like you could use it as an assistant, as like someone to brainstorm with, you know, to generate some ideas. But you cannot rely on it to tell a full story, because like, you know, as the what Anthony mentioned earlier and we touched on, is like the human connection.
Yeah.
It's still a machine. It's still a software. It's really regurgitating
Mhm.
stuff from the internet. It doesn't have life experience. It doesn't have the nuance of a human being, of the inner conflict, the messed upness of a human being. Uh, to put that into, you know, an interesting story. But it is, you know, some of the tools are very beneficial, especially in the early creative process.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's not something like you're gonna put a prompt and it's gonna spit out a feature film that's gonna be a blockbuster. Right now it can't do that. In
Take
my
some of
opinion.
the heavy lifting out of some of the menial stuff that we were doing. And I find that to be a blessing. You know, there's when it comes to AI, it's like saying internet, you know, there's so many different AI tools and so many different areas that, you know, it's not one all-encompassing thing as AI. And it's interesting to see what develops out of it. Like you've alluded to and mentioned several times, I don't think there's ever really, at least nowhere in the near future, going to be a day that the human element, the thing that makes us who we are, is replaced easily by software.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, I don't think people necessarily love technology. I mean, in the last 3 years or so, I've done an informal poll of myself. I've asked countless people of all ages, and I say this to them. In my view, social media has been one of the worst things to ever happen to society. And not one person, no matter their age, has ever disagreed. I mean, sure, there's been some good things, but when you look at the negatives, the lying that goes on, making young girls feel inadequate, teenage depression has skyrocketed. So it's like we're given technology, but we don't, how many times have you heard people say, "Oh, I hate going to a restaurant anymore because you don't see people talking, they're all on their phones."
Yeah.
Right.
Or even going to the grocery store. I see, and I'm one of these myself. I'd much prefer a human checkout person than having to go through the self-service checkout. So people, we're presented with so much technology, but that doesn't mean it's embraced 100% by any means.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's a fine line between using technology and being used by technology.
Well said.
Yeah, that's really well said. You should trademark that.
Make sure it's all that. We got about 10 minutes left. I want to use them because this is a rare opportunity that I get to sit with you. You're always busy. Every time I see you, you're in something new, something that's making me laugh my butt off. Um, what are the next, what's the next 5, 10 years? Do you look that far ahead?
Uh, you know, I stopped doing that since you know, I was in corporate America, and like every year you come to the year-end review and they're like, where do you see yourself, you know, 5 years from now? And nothing ever happens like from that vision, like, you know. uh, you're like, oh, could I have predicted like COVID and, you know, 5 years ago? Probably
Right.
not.
Right.
Uh, so you know, while I think the maximum I plan is like a year, maybe two ahead, uh, because you know, who knows what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, really.
Yeah.
Uh, So I just, try to, and I've been, I started like a meditation practice several years ago, and so I try to more or less stay, present to what's happening right now, rather than worry about what's going to happen like 5 minutes from now.
You
Sure.
meditate daily?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for how long, if I may ask?
Uh, sometimes 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
But it didn't start out that way. I've been doing it for a few years. So when I started out, it was like, 5, 10 minutes. And then, it's like working out. You can't just go to the gym and lift 500 pounds,
Right.
at one shot. You kind of build up to it. So it's over time, because that's why it's called a meditation practice.
Mm.
You just practice it regularly, and then over time you develop the stamina to sit longer.
Yeah.
I have one
What,
last. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry, what kind of benefits has it brought you in your creative processes, would you say?
Well, I mean, it overall it changed my life completely. Like it changed how I approach life in general. And creatively, it really it just clears my mind. Like, and when I'm and it helps me really focus on the task at hand. So I'm not, distracted, and because like anything creative now is more like a meditation to me. Like when I'm writing, I'm totally immersed into it, and I'm like, because like meditation, you kind of isolate yourself from the world, and you're within. And so with writing as well, like I isolate myself from the world and jump into what I'm writing. And with acting, I try to be present to what's happening right now, and I'm not racing ahead to the next scene or to what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So overall, it really helped me flow through life much smoother. Like I don't have like emotional spikes, whether like positive or negative. Like if something good happens, great. If something bad happens, okay. It's I don't spike either way emotionally. I'm kind of even keeled throughout.
Yeah. Well,
Hakuna Matata.
that's a nice balance to have.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're floating through life.
Yeah.
Anthony, I'm really glad you used that word because I was going to ask Ayman because I think everybody needs a certain amount of balance in their life. I think you nailed one of the keys that help you keep yours, which is probably the meditation, right? Does that help keep balance within your personal life?
Yes, it really got me through because I started the practice during COVID, at the beginning of COVID,
Mhm.
and it really completely changed my life. While most people were freaking out, and I would freak out also every once in a while, but for the most part, it really transformed my thinking and just my nervous system in general. So I'm just generally calmer. There's a saying that, like, if you're in the water and you're struggling in the water, you're only you only focus on the struggle, right? And
Mhm.
you get the water. But once you let go of the struggle and you just let the water carry you and you float, now you feel the water and you're not struggling anymore. So I think that's the difference. Like before, I would struggle, and I would just be into that struggle and forget that life is actually great outside of that little struggle. And once you just relax and let life in, you just float.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And it makes you open for more opportunities.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anthony, do you want to close this out?
Well, I was just going back to the acting world. While I like the convenience of the self-tape audition, I also miss auditioning with a casting director to have somebody play off. So I think what's your feeling on that? Do you do a lot of in-home auditions, or are you going to casting offices?
That's a great point, because for the longest time, especially with COVID and stuff, self tape was the only option. Uh,
Right.
Only recently, they started actually to do like live auditions again. And I remember I went on a live audition a few months ago. Initially, I was intimidated because it's been a while. And then when I went, it was really amazing, because like again, it's like you're saying, at the grocery store, you want to talk to the person instead of doing the auto checkout.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
you get to interact with somebody, you get like instant feedback on your performance, because like when you're doing the self tape, you're in a silo. You're still, even if someone is helping you, it still doesn't give you that adrenaline like when you're actually in the room and you're live and you're present and you're it's completely different. I just had a video game audition yesterday, and it was live, and it was because for motion capture and stuff, and that was so much fun, because like we got to run around, because like because it's a video game. It was just like so playful and so fun, and to engage with the other actor, and
Yeah.
um because it's like it almost resembles slightly a set, which is that's the ultimate goal that we love. So definitely, in person is much better, but there's a generation that doesn't even know the in-person auditions, that
Yeah.
started and like right before
Yeah.
COVID. They haven't even seen a live audition.
Well, unfortunately, I live a couple hours from Oklahoma where there's a lot of auditions. So most of the time I do in person, but I think if it's a role I really would love, I think I'm gonna make the sacrifice and drive. Because that's how I auditioned for Reagan, was in person. That was March of 2020, so it was just before COVID hit. So
Yeah,
they were still doing the in-person audition. So I don't know. I love the direction from a casting director.
yeah. I
So
love the thrill of it too. I just enjoy, like, it just has a different energy. You're
yeah,
like excited, and
absolutely.
um
Well, I must say, sir, you for all your achievement, you're incredibly humble, you're honest, and it's a real pleasure. So
thank
Well
you.
said. Yeah.
continued success.
Thank you so much.
We'll be
Appreciate
looking for you along with, I'm sure, most of our listeners. I really like what you do. I love the humor. I love the writing that you bring to the table. You're so gifted. So I'm wishing you the world, man. It's a pleasure. Thank you for coming back on tonight.
Thank you, Bo. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And it was really nice meeting you, Anthony.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much for your time. Continued success.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Take care.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. All right. Anthony, I think he dipped off. I thought that went well. How do you feel?
I thought it was fantastic. I thought I
Excellent.
talked a little too much, though. I'm sorry.